Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's daily tune in. Vidette here. Oh man, I'm not sure where to start. There's been a lot of, the last 24 hours has been really, really intense, I feel like, energetically. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Hi, Isabel. Good morning from gloomy Quebec, waiting for the sun to come out. I know it's coming out. It has been yesterday was gloomy here, but it was really cool. But Bud and I watched like this whole storm system kind of just sit off of off of our balcony here, basically in the middle of the sea, and it was just really it was cool yesterday to watch it. But one of the things I wanted to share, because we are in, I got some more. Sat down with my team this morning. Was like, what just happened? What was yesterday? And when I kind of give you an experience that I had, because it kind of brings it all the messages that we've been getting here on these daily tune-ins, it brings them together. And yesterday, Bud and I went for a long walk, and if you've been around for a little while, that was kind of our thing in Ukraine, was always to taking 3, 4, 5 miles a day, and we would just walk around the city. And we've been doing a lot of walking around here, around Saranda, but all last week it was kind of more so like learning. You know how it is when you get a new neighborhood, you got to find your store, you got to know where you're going to go to get your bread, and where you're going to go get your eggs and all the things. So we've a lot of last week was more kind of finding things and figuring out how to get around and exploration. Yesterday was the first day that it was like we didn't have anything to get, we didn't have anything to find. It was just full on peace. And I'm going to use that word because that's been coming up a lot here in these last couple of daily tune-ins. But it was the first time, y'all, that I felt peace in probably my entire life. As I was telling Bud last night, I was like, "Oh my gosh, if I really were to get honest with myself, I'm not sure I've ever felt this level of peace before." Majority of my life for the last 20, for the last since 2008, majority of my life has been in reconstruction mode, rehaul mode. Some part of my life was in a rebuilding phase and a reinvention phase, because when my awakening started in 2008, I kind of went all in and was like, all right, everything's getting a rehaul, and it's taken me that long to pretty much do everything. This geographic leap was kind of like the last and final thing on the agenda to what I now realize was to kind of catch up with that soul timeline. So I talked a little bit about that in the description of today's daily tune-in. We are going through this warp speed gateway. And this was the one that started on the 2nd of February and will go through those 3 weeks to the 22nd. And so yesterday, being in that place of peace for the entire day, the day felt so long, but not in like how we used to say, like, oh, it's such a long day. It just kept meandering and it kept going, and we kept walking, and then we came back here and we did some work, and we cooked it, we cooked stuff, and then when I got on the daily tune in, did the daily tune in, I was feeling really weird. I was feeling a little not off in a bad way. I was feeling, what the word that kind of came to me afterward was like a little bit disassociated. So I'm going to come back around to like put all these pieces together. So I went in to tell Bud I was done, because I was like, hey, honey, I'm done with the daily tune in. So if you want to go for a walk or do something, we can go do that. And he's like, well, it was really quick. He said, usually your daily tune-ins are like 45 minutes, but it was so fast. And I looked at the clock and it was only like 4:23 or something like that. And I'm like, that was really weird. And like, I didn't even go back and look at like what I said on the daily tune-in, because a lot of times I don't really recall it. I'm just kind of in the moment and delivering it. When I get off, I'm like, I know how I felt. So I got off and I felt okay, but I did feel a little disassociated as I was talking about the message and about the movie script, and how we're all like we're kind of converging back on our soul timelines in these 3 weeks. But all of a sudden I was like, that was really weird. And what's this feeling? And I finally got some intel on it this morning when I kind of sat down early this morning and was watching the sun come up and having a moment with my team. But what's happening is, I want to kind of explain this a little bit. Um, so this warp speed tsunami of energy that we're in, Priya, hey, stop looking. This warp speed, if you imagine like, in the Star Wars movies when they go into warp speed, like in the spaceship, it's normal, they're not like pinned, they're not pinned to the back, but they're going through warp speed. So all of a sudden, when they get to the other side, they have traveled how far. We are doing that kind of same thing energetically, where we're going through the motions of our lives, but yet energetically we're going through warp speed. So we are growing in consciousness so quickly in a 24-hour period. So when we are in these places of peace for so long, remember, we're every now moment we are working to get into that place of peace in every now moment. So we are the ones holding the timelines of peace, while the 3D world still, that structure and all of those paradigms still fall, and a lot of disclosure starts to happen. Okay, well, it's already happening actually. But in the February is kind of the last month that we're going to be in the dark still. There's going to still be some darkness that's covered up. And then when we go into March, April, and May, that's when a lot of disclosure is going to happen. So that's when a lot of truths are going to be announced and come into the light. So those who are still in these 3D realms of fear, that's when the real mass awakening is going to happen. But these 3 weeks of this gateway is really to trigger mass awakening by bringing people energetically through this warp speed of higher consciousness growth from these places of anger and fear and all of like these 3D realms, trying to move them up naturally to kind of wake up themselves so that they can come into these higher realms and start saying, okay, I'm going to start looking at my life. I'm going to start looking at what is it that I need to be looking at, because I can't take feeling these these emotions. And because of these mass waves of energy that are hitting us in these 3 weeks, we've got 14 days left, actually 2 weeks left. It's going to intensify your feelings by 1,000-fold. So if you are in fear, think of these next 2 weeks are going to be like full on fear if you're not in the know, right? So whatever you might be hanging on to fear wise, or maybe some anger or some resentment, this is for you to transmute into peace. Be at peace with whatever is. When I said that I've never been at such a level of peace, majority of the areas of my life are pretty much in a really healthy state. And as long as I grow from here, I'm good. There's a part of my life that isn't quite perfect yet. And I'm not looking for perfection, but I want it to be better. I want it to be more expressed. So I still have some grief down here and there, but I'm at the point now where I'm, thanks to Ukraine, because I had to sit with this grief for 5 whole months. Now I'm at peace with it. If this is the most expressed that this part of my life gets, it's really not perfect. It's really not what my soul wants, but I'm at peace with it. So that being at peace doesn't mean everything's perfect in your life. It just means that you are at peace in the moment with whatever still needs some growth on. That is our work, because if we stay in the grief or fear or scarcity or anxiety of it, it's going to feel a lot more painful in these next 2 weeks than if you were to grow into peace with it and be at that timeline of peace. Okay, so we've got this timeline of love, but if we are in love and peace and we come all the way down to shame and scarcity and all the way down here, and we come back up here, we're only going to create a reality that's still below these life constricting lines. We want to rise up and hold the realities of love and peace while all of the people that we know who are very much still associated and anchored into that 3D world, while they feel as much as they do, so that they can hopefully wake up before they have no choice but to see the truth coming in March, April, and May, and on through 2022. Okay. So I also want to give you a couple of things to keep in mind, because I want you to remember how much work we have done, how much has happened energetically in the last, I mean, the last year, of course, but like the last 6 months, the last 3 months, really. So remember that we've been building up to this momentum of massive sheets almost of light. And as it was raining at one point yesterday, the waves or the wind was taken, and there was like these sheets of rain that were kind of like sweeping across the sea out here, and it was really cool to watch. But when I saw it, that was immediately reminded from my team. They're like, that's what the light is. Like that's the energy waves. They're just constantly like, one big wave coming in and another wave coming in. And this is really for the next 2 weeks to spark the next level of the ascension process for those of us. I'm going to say us, for those of us who are ready. So that I am presence. Remember, we talked about that. I had the last week I shared a hypno meditation that I an activity of light that I created for this very time space. So if you haven't gotten that, on my website, there is an activity of light called invoking the I am presence. So grab that. But this is the I am presence within you in these next 2 weeks. The I am presence is that presence, is that consciousness, your team. It is source consciousness that is here to walk you through this portal of light. So allow your team to be with you on this, because the amount of growth that you're going to have, I know I noticed it from in a 24-hour period. If I look back on who I was when I was on doing this daily tune in yesterday, completely different. I know that sounds so strange, but I was like stretched, like energetically. I was completely like here talking, but my consciousness was up here, it was being pulled up. And that's how the dissociation was happening yesterday, because I was being up leveled energetically, as you probably were too. But we were still in this 3D activity of talking and sharing information. And it was like, so time was stretched, right? So it was like a really thin portal of time, linear time. So it was actually 20 something minutes rather than 45 something. It was just a really weird thing. But that's what I'm trying to explain it as best I can, because your time is going to be different. Things are going to feel a little glitchier here in the next 2 weeks. If you feel disassociated, you are literally like, can I say literally? Because I think I can, but I'm not sure how to explain it. But it is like you are straddling two worlds. Okay. So you're defaulting back. You're trying, like I was yesterday when I was sitting here, I was like, I have to be on. I've got to say this message. But it was like I was what's the word I put? Defaulting back to the fragmented duality of 3D, right? My consciousness was here, but my physical body, my physical mind was here with you. So I was fragmented. I wasn't integrated. So we're going to be challenged to stay integrated and rise up and go in this warp speed as the integrated multidimensional being that we are. So all parts of us, the soul part, the heart space, the energetics of us, as well as the physical, are all going to be, our work is to stay in that place of peace, to stay integrated. Because when we are not at peace and we are in that duality of anything below these lines, anything in duality is going to then have us straddling two worlds. The problem is now the two worlds are so opposite in frequency now that it's like, you got 1 foot here, and your straddle is like about to break. Your pants are about to rip. So that's what it was yesterday when I was on this daily tune in. I felt like my energetic pants were gonna rip. So it's really important for us to stay in the I am presence of where exactly is my consciousness, and allow my body to come up and meet that where it is. This is a massively huge jump energetically. So let me remind you of what we've been through since December. Okay, so we made the following changes to align you and our global reality to the highest potential reality, meaning to catch up to your soul reality in these next 2 weeks, to finally get to that last nudge, to get you onto your soul timeline, your soul reality. This is what has been happening. So your 12 solar strands of fifth dimensional DNA have been activated. We talked about that in December, right? The enslavement codes replaced with your divinity code. So the enslavement codes that were in the DNA have been upgraded into the divinity codes, and the divine body template. We've talked about that. Having your body come out of the density of the third dimensional density and rising into the crystalline, leaving the carbon based density to go into the crystalline based 5D frequency, because you have to, it's you the heavier body is too dense for these higher frequencies. Okay, the I am presence permanently elevated our holy breath. We've talked about how beautiful that is. So now you are breathing a higher frequency of prana. Your in and your out is having a much bigger effect, much wider energetic effect than ever before. You've co created the quantum field in your heart to permanently secure unity consciousness within your fully restored heart flame. That, I think, is the most beautiful thing, because now we can't help but walk around our neighborhoods. We can't help but go throughout our day, and simply just by being in this frequency, we are already changing the global reality. We are already breathing with our breath, the in and out. The holy breath is now helping the whole collective to rise up. So even though we might pass somebody who's very much identified in these third dimensional denser emotions, we are already breathing their air and releasing our air. And that energy is pulling them up, helping to pull them up, because we are operating consciously through this massive wave of energy that's coming through. Okay, so now we are ready, because all of that happened in the last, 8 weeks or so. We are now ready to ascend into the next level of ascension. So we have completed our third dimensional learning. All of that has already been completed, as long as we allow it to be complete, right? If you want to still have one foot in that third dimensional realm and still want to be residing in these lower densities, that is your choice. But what I'm here to tell you is, it no longer needs to be a choice. You can just pull your foot out of that dimensional reality and into the higher realms of peace in whatever dimensional reality you might be playing in there. So if you're still in a job that you don't like and it's a third dimensional job, you can still have your consciousness there, but pull out the anchors to that and be at peace with that particular job. Because as soon as you find peace, it then opens up your receptivity to start moving along into the soul reality that your soul chose in, when it was screenwriting your movie. It was like, when she is this age at this point in that the second part of the ascension process, she is now going to say, to hell with this job. I'm going to just be at peace with it. I'm going to go in. I'm going to be the light. I'm going to give smiles. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do my job. I'm not going to have to like it, but I'm going to be at peace with it. And what happens all of a sudden is, finally, because you're at peace, the solutions come. That thing moves its own way out of your life, and you get to then step into a higher expression of that reality. Okay, I'm hoping this is making sense. It's so hard sometimes to take it from this ethereal idea and take it into like a tangible example. But the ego is no longer has the ability to manipulate you. So if you are being manipulated by your ego, that thing, you're allowing it. So this is where the personal and the self-responsibility starts to really amp up in these next 2 weeks. You have no excuses. What's done is done. Your timelines have played out. You're about to merge onto the soul pathway, the soul timeline. You've got 2 more weeks to allow that to happen. And you do that simply by being in a place of peace in all aspects of your life. And once you're there, then everything for the rest of 2020 just simply rolls out no matter what's going on, because the 3D world will be spinning out of control. It definitely will be, but I'm telling you, that world barely exists in my world now, because I've risen up into those very low levels of the 5D reality now. I'm like, I know that I've stepped over there, and I'm in it, and I'm just acclimating. This is why the disassociation feels so palpable, because it is a completely different energy. It's a lot higher. And I will tell you, one thing to expect is, when we think of the days where you may have lived in these lower, majority of the day in these lower densities. So have you ever had the day that you were like, you went through and you were in grief all day long, or you were in fear all day long? You go to work, you're in fear of whatever, and you come home and you're just worried about your kids, you're worried about your job, you're worried about the world, you're worried about your family, you don't know how to talk to your family, so you lived in fear. And that night, how tired and exhausting were you, or exhausted were you? Those living in these lower levels of this low of energy will be exhausting. But here's the thing: as we start to do more operate more in the fifth dimensional realms, where this place of joy and peace become the majority of the day, these are just exhausting too, because our bodies are used to being down here. Our body, mind, and spirit are all used to being here in these lower realms. So when your average becomes up here, it still is work. You still have to acclimate to it. So you have to get used to it. So as we rise up in these next 2 weeks, and we do our work to stay in a place of at a timeline of peace, know that it's going to be exhausting. And I know my husband and I have both been extremely exhausted. So I'm like, boy, honey, living in peace is hard work. It's exhausting. I went to bed early last night, and I was up early, but we just woke up from a nap right before this. So there's so much happening. Please give yourself a break, but also please stay so centered in the awareness of what is happening, because you are changing minute by minute in like warp speed. Pay attention, because and start doing it at 24-hour rotations. Like from right now, when we get on tomorrow, I want you to like sit back and be like, who was I yesterday when I was on this, and who am I today? It's going to change that quickly. It meaning your consciousness, your I am presence is expanding so quickly, so that we can be the peacekeepers of these massive changes in disclosure, and the massive changes in individuals who are about to wake up, who are about to come online. And this energy is getting them there, whether they want to or not. So that's where we are. Tara, just really quick, the first thing on I went to, I feel like the days are so long right now. They are. And it's like, it's the craziest, coolest feelings. It's not like, I mean, I've had long days in the past, like my single mom days, going to work and like, oh my God, doing all the things. I was like, these days are never going to end. But it was like in a completely different energy than they are now. Like now I'm just like, oh, now what? And now what? And we're gonna go for our walk, and we're gonna get, it's just so weird. Like things are so stretched out, but at the same time, the growth is like really intense. Who's out there? Here's our neighbors. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hello from UK. Cam, gloomy UK. Hello from outside Philadelphia, PA. So freaking blessed to be in this community with you all. Thanks, Sharon. We're blessed to have you here too. Florida, good morning. First morning above freezing in 3 weeks in northern Colorado. Yeah, I don't miss that. Like those days of Ukraine, man, it was cold there. It was so cold. It was like exactly, Bud and I would laugh because we're like, doesn't it look like exactly growing up in the 80s, the propaganda that we heard about Russia, and Ukraine was Russia at that time. And like the images that we would see of like Russians cold, and like the babushkas with the big, the big hats on, like that still exists. And it was just couple like 2 weeks ago that we were in that cold weather. And now like literally I had this shirt off, I have a little tank top on. I was out there sweating in the sun today. So it's like blowing my mind, like the reality shift that we have, that Bud and I have lived through, both like geographically, but also energetically in these last 2 weeks, has catapulted my human experience. It's so interesting and fascinating to keep track of. I noticed Sharon says, I noticed yesterday was different. Felt like a timeline shift that was just for me to remind to sign up for the Scribble event. Yeah, I'm telling you, something was wacky weird yesterday. Because after like when I went in yesterday after the daily tune in, and Bud said, "What are you doing?" It was only 20 minutes. I was like, "That was only 20 minutes," because I felt like it was normal, but I don't even know what happened. And there weren't many comments or anything. Like you guys were super quiet, and there weren't that many. It was a weird moment in time, and I noticed it, but I don't know what it is, except that, Sharon, I think it was this massive like timeline shift where all of a sudden we were all like, what just happened? Sharon, I had zero energy yesterday, totally blah, lots of feels going on. Yeah. And remember, those all the feels are going to be 1,000, 1,000 times more intense, which is fun if you're in love and joy and peace, like, but still intensified by 1,000-fold. Even that's still kind of like, whew, okay. Like I literally yesterday a couple times had to stop and like tell my team, like, okay, I need to bring it down a notch because it's a little too good. And I'm like, my heart's not gonna, I can't do it. Like I need to come down a little bit. So yeah, we're all kind of acclimating to these new frequencies, and this is where you work with your team. And thanks, who said that, Christine or Sharon, for mentioning the Scribble workshop. I'm going to call it a workshop, but it's more going to be an experiential gathering where we're just going to get on in there in conversation and do this fun little process. But I'm pretty sure that what comes of that, the messages that come from this process are going to blow your mind, blow our mind. And this is why I want it to be a mind blowing experience. So it's going to be a gathering of all of our teams coming together to come together with an important message, a cohesive, co-created message for our community. So if you haven't signed up, at the pinned post at the top of the chat, I do have the link for that. You just make a donation and I'll send you the link. Christine, yesterday was in bed first half of the day and didn't give myself a hard time about it. The kids and I did a Willy Wonka. I love it, Sharon. Yeah, this we've got to give ourselves permission to just to rest and to really, give ourselves some love at this point. I logged on at 10:25 to catch it, and you were already done. I read that the Schumann rising is actually making our days 16 hours long, not 24. So we are essentially on a 1.5 day equivalent. Oh, I hadn't heard that, Tiffany, but I feel like that could be linear time is a made up human thing. And with these higher frequencies and the way that we're shifting, I can see where weird stuff like that would happen, that we, like, as humans, are kind of like, what do we do about that? We didn't really see that coming with this whole ascension thing. But linear time, I believe, I mean, like I said, yesterday was something really strange. Yesterday was wonky for me. I hadn't I have had no anxiety in over a year. And yesterday it was like electricity in the air. My heart was racing. I kept pulling myself back up to peace. Yeah, Brenna, that's our job. And there's a part of me that's like, man, I got to hold the peace for all the people that are still down here in fear. But you know what? Like, I've been here. I've lived majority of my life down here, and that anxiety, man, that shit's like not fun. And there's a lot of people that are feeling this 1,000-fold, because it's literally like the consciousness, the team that is holding the consciousness of all of Earth, which is all of our teams, like everybody, they're dialing up the intensity, so that all of those who got good at operating in that third dimensional world, in these places of fear, where they manipulated themselves out of feeling fear, and be like, no, I'm happy, really, I'm happy, but it's really laden with heavier the fears, or and the jobs, and I can't get rid of this job because it's how I pay my bills, but I'm really, really sad, and I'm grieving, and I want to be, I want more passion, I want more substance in my life, but I got it good, like there's a lot of people living in that kind of deception, deceiving themselves so greatly, because they're just too afraid, or just have no clue how to even start to get into a healthier place. And in order for them to get to the point where they can rise up enough to start seeing, to have the courage to start looking at the things in their life that really aren't satisfying, in order to get them just a little bit up the curve, the energy has to be dialed up. So they are kind of being forced awakened. And if it doesn't, then the news and everything else that's coming in March, April, May is going to do that for them, where they're like, I can't stay blind anymore. So we have to support these people. I know it's frustrating because we all have them in our lives. We're like, we tried to tell you, like, but you didn't want to believe us, and all that. We're at peace with all of it now, right? We're over like the judgment of those who wouldn't listen. We're over it. And at this point, my heart goes out to them, because when I'm operating up here and I look at all of the people that are down here in these realms, I know that feeling, and I have nothing but compassion at this point. So if someone needs my help down here, whether I tried to help them or not earlier, from this place of peace, all I can do is be of help and be of service. That is what we are here to do, to hold this line. We've been talking about this for weeks, y'all. Holding that line of peace. This is the time that we have to do it. So happy to hear this. March 2022 is a time that I have been waiting for a decade. Never knew why until 2 years ago. I'm always saying to everyone around me that March 2022 will be fire. Oh, I like that, Isabel. I think it's going to be fire. I have that feeling too. It's so interesting. This is the thing too. Pay attention. How all of this is going to unfold. The second half of this next, I don't know if it's the second half, this next level of ascension. I don't know how many levels there are, to be quite honest with you guys. I'm just like, I just know that there's like these up levels, or like these phases, and we're about to go into another phase. So how this plays out in our global world, I don't really know. I just know it's going to be like mind blowing, like, oh my god, we didn't even see that coming. So pay attention to what you see on mainstream media now, just to pay attention, just to be fascinated by it, because those narratives are going to start changing as the changing of the guard comes in. Remember, we talked about that. So there's going to be a whole changing of the guard that comes in politics, in our healthcare systems, in the news. This is going to, I don't think it's going to happen all at once. It's going to be kind of like a dripped, so to speak. So we'll start to see it little by little by little, but start to amp up. So all of those outlets that have been part of the problem, that have been part of the propaganda, that have been part of the deception, those are going to start to shift a little bit. Is kind of the intelligence that I'm getting, but I don't know how it's going to really work. So just pay attention to what you're seeing and how things are unfolding in the world, because now it's all in our favor. Although it's going to be interesting to watch how that plays out. I've had heart palpitations. Oh, where did that go? Just jumped. Heart palpitations, yes. So, ascension symptoms are going to keep going. We're massively expanding our multidimensional containers. So our heart space, our energetics are expanding, our consciousness is expanding, and our energy, our physical body is expanding in frequency as well. So again, as it is not expanding and is in like, gaining weight, it's going to be shedding even more of the density. So you're going to have more things kind of quickly falling away. So just pay attention to your body and how it's changing, how your mind, your thoughts, because your ego, mind, and thoughts are now going to kind of be not quieted, but they're gonna feel different. They're gonna feel at a higher frequency, because you are now going to be, your thoughts and ideas are going to be more source consciousness ideas, your soul ideas coming through. So they're going to feel different. They're going to vibrationally, they're going to feel different in your body than like the ego thoughts where like, you should be doing this, you should do, the old school way that we've operated. These There's going to be less of this and more listening, and this is going to be more like, oh, and now this and now that, and this is how we're going to change that, and you're going to be like, oh, okay. And it's just going to be a more cohesive communication. It's going to be really more of a gentle and sweet communication, even though some of the communication and guidance might be a little difficult, or you might not like, oh, you like, kind of want to go there. It might be like, oh, it's time to quit that job, or it's time to have that conversation, whatever is needing to change quickly and warp speed in these next couple of weeks. When those ideas come, when the light comes, the flood of light is going to come, and you're going to just have to take care of some of the things that maybe haven't been taken care of, but it's going to be gentler and sweeter and easier, and there's going to be more peace around it. So it's not going to be this horribly like, oh my God, scary thing for you to face. Whatever that means for you, this is a pretty general energy reading. Whatever that means for you, you'll figure it out. But just know when the thing comes and you're like, oh, okay, I'm at peace with this. I've got to just take care of it. Just know that your movie script is coming back onto the scripted soul timeline. So all of this is just going to be kind of shaved away, and you're going to be at peace with it, because you know that on the other side of it, it's this glorious new reality of this fifth dimensional reality, your soul reality. There's so much turmoil behind the scenes with the elites, and we won't see it in the 3D media. Elizabeth April does a great job of explaining it. Yeah. I haven't seen any of her stuff, but I completely agree with that, Sharon, for sure. I'm really considering joining it. It's just hard blocking out time, having a little one around again. After the medbed, after helping my son, I did automatic writing with my higher self and asked about a situation. Got lots of communication. So cool. My guides HS says to start a Patreon. Okay, then do it. Start a Patreon. Start communicating. This is how the higher realms of our gifts come in. It's through donations. It's through just giving and allowing people to choose when they come with you, when they listen, when they need your guidance, and when it's time for you to share your guidance. That's what we're all coming into at this point. And this is where the locking of the arms, the holding the line is like, it comes into physical manifestation. So if you are, pushed or pulled or inspired to start something, to start supporting people in their own ascension, in their own evolution, then just get on it, start doing it. So Trish said, for the first time yesterday, I felt like I was just not resonating with yesterday's DTI. The energy felt so extreme, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Yeah, yesterday was weird. Me too, Trish. I got off and I was like, I don't even really know what I said, and it was just, yesterday was a freaking weird ass day, y'all. And I think we're going to have more of those. Today feels a little bit more grounded for me, but I'm getting a pretty strong sense and feeling that these next 2 weeks are going to be really extreme. And again, in our highest good, not at all, extreme up in these areas, and we're not used to operating here. So that's where, it's almost going to be work to be there. So it's going to be a different extreme than we've known. I felt different. Luckily, I watched 2 other DTIs yesterday, so it was okay. I felt weird about yesterday's DTI too. I know. Okay. It was weird. I don't know what it was. I don't have it's funny that you have that that thought process too, but I don't know what happened. There was a glitch. There was a glitch in the system yesterday. So either way though, there is this beautiful there is a beautiful lighter energy that's coming in. We are being reminded that timelines are massively merging, and we're seeing a lot of different timelines kind of coming in. It's in the grapevine area of of major cities, where they have 3 or 4 different roadways coming in and kind of circling and turning around to get on one big thoroughfare. That's kind of where we are. We've got all of these timelines coming in, rushing in the tsunami, of energy coming together. So we have to be okay with being a little bit disoriented, a little bit confused, a little bit off, and then coming back and being like, okay, we're still breathing together. We're still on these DTIs. We're still moving through this tsunami. Tomorrow might be weird, but either way, it is a really weird time, and that's why we're talking about this massive change and of frequency, because it's getting faster and faster. I can feel it. I can. It's almost extremely tangible to me. So I want to be open about that. So okay, I think we're good. Again, Thursday of this week, we're going to be doing the scribble workshop. And then on Saturday, we're going to have in the Ascension Bank for members, we're going to have our Saturday Ascension Circle. So we'll come together and we maybe talk about URLs, your experiences this week, what you're feeling, what you're experiencing. Let's come together and support for each other, and just again get through this one week by 1 week, 1 day, 1 hour, 1 moment, one now moment, one now moment. Okay, my mouth is not working. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for coming back here even after like a weird day yesterday. Love to you all. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah. Have a good one. We are magical beings, Sharon. Thank you for reminding us. And end stream.